Buddy, Uneducated Economist here. Be sure to hit that like button when you come into the live stream. We might be sticking around for maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes. I'm not going to do a very long live stream. I know I say that every time, but no, I'm serious this time. I'm really not going to be sticking around that long. But I guess that really depends on how many people show up, because I always end up sticking around for a long time. All right, half an hour is what my goal is, 45 minutes at the most. Talking about lumber, going to tell the lumber story for real, what's really happening, regardless of what anybody else thinks out there. Being in the lumber game as deeply as I am, there's very little room for any kind of information to be missed by what it is that I am pursuing for the data. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but there is no way that anybody out there is going through as much information as I do when it comes to looking at the lumber industry, unless you are, specifically going for particular information when it comes to how much is produced, or, how much, each individual mill might be producing at any given time. When it comes to knowing what the mills are doing, knowing what the loggers are doing, knowing what the truck drivers are doing, knowing what the retailers are doing, knowing what the contractors are doing, knowing what the homeowners are doing, knowing what the distribution network is all going through on a scale that I understand it, is very few and far between when it comes to people who are studying the economy. Like, I know lumber. I know it well. And I was able to call out the lumber market better than just about anybody else could. And as people were making YouTube videos and getting millions of views talking about the greedy mills out there taking advantage of the builders out there in their time of need, and lumber prices going to $1,700 per thousand, and there was all this outlandish stories and crazy gossip, it was really the uneducated economist who was explaining it for what it was really taking place. And now I have said it so many times on this channel that the lumber story is very, very telling of what's going on within the economy. Now, when we look at lumber today, when we look at lumber in recent history, and we look at lumber over the long term, the story is not the same, and it changes constantly. And if you do not know the history for the long run, it will be very, very obscure. And there will be a lot of blame that can be thrown at politicians, at the environment, at greedy mills, at greedy home builders. All the blame in the world can be thrown around. But when you have reason that leads through the events that we are experiencing today, then it's better to understand that these events will continue, that the issues that had taken place from 10, 15, 20 years ago are now impacting the events that we have experienced over the last 10, 5, even current events today. So when it comes to the lumber game, what's happening right now is very much the bullwhip effect. This is the repercussions of, or the backlash, or whatever, the consequence of having severed the supply chain. And now what most people do not know about the lumber industry is that it was severed prior to the pandemic. See, all throughout 2019, there was mill curtailments, mill shutdowns, inventory depletion. I had done a video talking about OSB production. OSB is the main sheathing component when it comes to new construction. So if you can imagine the skeleton of a house, you got the 2x4s, 2x6s. This is like the skeleton of the house. The sheathing, that's the skin that goes on the outside. And OSB is the most common form, more cost effective, or cost worthy. I don't know what am I trying to say here. Anyway, the better priced material is the OSB market, and they were pulling literally hundreds of billions of square feet of this product off the market at the end of 2019. So when we went into the pandemic, we were going into the pandemic with lumber shortages in the market already. See, when you go and read articles like the one I leave down in the description, where the Wall Street Journal is talking about how the pandemic created these lockdowns and shortages, they failed to talk about how there was an entire year's worth of production slowdown and mill curtailments and mill shutdowns. It was terrible. Like, I mean, you can just go and look at my channel. Every week, many times, sometimes throughout the week, I would be doing videos talking about the mill curtailments and shutdowns. Right? I mean, you can just go back and look at my channel and find them. In fact, it was one of the reasons why the channel got so popular, is that when lumber took off, I had an entire year's worth of reason that had led up to the events that we had experienced after the pandemic. And yes, all the things that the Wall Street Journal mentions are very much accurate. Like, there's nothing like inaccurate about what it is that they were saying. Unfortunately, because they don't tell the whole story, it leads people to believe that this is a one-time event that was caused by a very short-term occurrence. It's not. It's something that led back decades. And that's important to understand. You know? And so when it comes to the bullwhip effect, understanding that oversupply, undersupply, oversupply is going to continue to occur until you find equilibrium. Right? And sometimes it may take months, weeks, sometimes it could take years, may even take decades. And when we look at the economy, it's going to be different in all industries throughout the years. And lumber works really fast. It's important to understand that, because people will say, no, the rest of the economy isn't going to function like lumber. That's not true, right? See, lumber is an incredibly quick commodity. It's a very, very well-established, well-functioning operation when it comes to the supply chain. It's a domestic product, right? Our trees, our rails, our trucks, our mills, our distribution networks, everything about it, right? So when it comes to a shortage of lumber and it comes time to replenish the supply, it doesn't take long for the mills to fire up production. There's a few things that limit them. Right? They can only run the mill at so much capacity. Once it's at full capacity, that's it. Now you can make more mills, you can build more mills, right? But that takes time. Another problem with it is kilns, right? If you have dried lumber, there's only so much room and it takes so much time. But once this steady supply is filled and it's then flowing through the system, prices dropped immediately. See, this is how I know that the whole inflation game that they had played in order to try and acquire their monetary policy back from all the things that we had studied from monetary policy, knowing that it was the inflation expectation that was persistently too low, that was the Fed's problem, knowing that they were going to try and create an inflationary scenario so that they could get that monetary policy back. See, seeing this ahead of time and watching the lumber game, when lumber was at 1,700 per thousand, I said it at the time. This is going to go back to normal. What are you all going to say when it goes back to normal, since everybody wants to point at lumber and say this is the money printer? And now here it is for months now. It's been down under, at, or somewhere near 550 to 500 per thousand. This is the same price that we were experiencing prior to the pandemic. And now what most people don't understand is that this particular price includes a rail cost going out to Chicago. It should be cheaper than that if you were to really price it out the way that it was done back prior to the pandemic, when everybody wanted, if you were to compare the prices back to then. So really, the price of lumber should be much cheaper than it's showing right now when you compare it to then, like apples to apples kind of thing. You know how they changed the inflationary scenario, so you can't look at the futures price of lumber anymore and compare it to what it was prior to the pandemic, because it's not the same futures contract. And in fact, what's pretty interesting about it is there's actually more liquidity that is inside of this of the futures market when it comes to lumber, considering that the lumber contracts are now a quarter the size of what they were. And now this is really interesting also to think about, is that I don't have any of the statistics in front of me, so I can't tell you what the numbers are. But if you go and you look at what the volume is today for these contracts, they're not too far off. Like the number of contracts are not too far off from what they were like when you would consider like a heavy volume of traffic, right? So like any market, it's all about the liquidity, right? How liquid is this market? Is there a bunch of buyers and sellers in here, or especially is there a bunch of buyers? Because when it comes to selling, you want to be able to instantaneously sell it for the price that you're asking for. The moment that you can't and it starts to fall in price, or you have to reduce the price in order to sell it, that's an illiquid market, right? There's not enough buyers in that market. So now we look at the size of the contracts that are available, the volume of it, and it's a quarter the size, but yet the volume size, what you would think would be a reasonable amount, is actually much smaller in amount of dollar terms considering what they used to be. See, they were 110,000 board feet before, now they're about the quarter that size, but there's the same amount of contracts in there, even though there's only the quarter the size of lumber within the contract itself. You see, there's a hell of a lot less volume taking place and a hell of a lot less liquidity if you got the prices falling even on those smaller contracts like that. I don't know if I'm making myself clear on that, but ultimately this is becoming a very illiquid market. There's not a lot of buyers in this looking for lumber. This is in the summertime. This is at a time when house prices are very expensive. People say there's a housing market crash, but that's only in sales, not in price. And what do we really see out there? Is there a huge rising of inventory? No, there's a huge delay in purchasing of homes. See, I think about this. If there's not a lot of homes being purchased, every single day there's another person who wants to buy a home. They grow up just a little bit more. They get that age on them just a little bit more. They've gone to that point where they want to start that family just a little bit more. And every day that it doesn't happen, that these home sales aren't taking place, there's another little bit of pressure taking place inside of the demand. See, the demand is building regardless of what people say. If there's homes that are not being sold, it's not a demand for homes that people are capable of buying, that people can see that says, hey, there's a demand here. What it is, it's a demand from desire to actually own one. Regardless of whether or not you can get one, it's the demand that you want one. And the moment that the price comes down, the availability or the capability of a buyer steps up. And so the demand increases the moment that happens. It's everybody, more people desire a home than don't, right? And so whether or not they're capable of doing it is a big difference. Going into the future, we're going to see that lumber prices are going to go up at some point. Right now, there is a huge depletion in inventory taking place. I've been talking about it for months. Mill curtailments have been running rampant throughout the nation. There is no article I can go to that explains that. I cannot share any information that I get personally. It's proprietary. I can tell you what I see, what I experience, and I am telling you now that this is not set up to be a position in which that lumber prices can forever stay down here. See, the longer that the demand from home builders stays stagnant or low, you're going to find the mills are not capable of operating under 500 per thousand. See, the added labor cost, the added energy cost, the added transportation cost, the added everything cost has now caused the lumber futures price at the mill to not be sustainable under 500 per thousand. They shut down production. They're saying, sorry, no, we're going to tighten up inventory. So if there's a tighter inventory, what happens? Demand, supply, prices. And this is really what the mills are looking for, but the demand doesn't come because the builders aren't excited. So long as these interest rates stay elevated, supposedly, we are going to find a buyer who is not capable of buying into new construction. And then if the new construction buyer isn't there, then you're certainly not going to have a new construction contractor saying, yeah, I'm going to supply into that. They're going to be incredibly nervous, and that's what you see going on right now within the lumber futures. Right? It's not it's not greed. Like, people want to say it's greed. Right now, these mills are shutting down. Do you think they would like to sell lumber? Do you think that maybe at 650 per thousand they would be yeah, let's supply? Sure. But right now, no, they have to shut down production. British Columbia is an insane producer of lumber. Like, people don't, I don't even, like, I have even a hard time even fathoming how much can come out of this particular area, especially back in its day, when it was really pumping out the stuff. But when it comes to softwood consumption here in the United States, we're talking 20% of it comes from Canada. And of that, better than 50% of it comes from the British Columbia area. These people are high cost, high output producers. So when it comes to high input cost, again, the cost of trees, the cost of gas, the cost of rails, all the transportation, all that stuff, right? They suffer the worst. And when they feel the pain of low prices, they shut down right now. Boom, done. This is the same thing that has taken place all across the nation right now. And so we are going to find a time here in the future in which that does reverse. See, it doesn't take here's something that I predict right now for you guys. See, this is how you're going to know when to buy your lumber, is because you're going to actually see lumber prices go back up way before the Federal Reserve cuts rates. See, everybody's waiting for interest rate cuts to happen. It's going to happen before that. You're going to see lumber prices go up. You're going to see everything start to take off before the Federal Reserve actually cuts rates. Lumber is a very, very good indicator. You watch this happen. See, the thing is that most people in anticipation of the Federal Reserve's interest rate cuts already know that it doesn't work. See, I learned for a long time ago from their monetary policy and running into the lower bound of zero with a low neutral interest rate that the cutting of interest rates was not going to be an effective tool. They knew they had to set up other policies. See, this is what they've been doing for the last 15, 20 years, is slowly building the tools of communication in order to conduct themselves with not actually having to cut rates. See, people don't know that. And it's important to understand that people don't know that, because that's the classical form of understanding the Federal Reserve, is that they will cut rates. But it doesn't work for them anymore. The communication about it does. And so understanding that they are going to communicate about that before they cut rates, and that communication of the interest rate cuts will actually act as an interest rate cut itself. And the economy will begin to react to that. And it is important to understand that at that point, you will see reversals in everything out there. Right now, everything's going to follow exactly what lumber did. You see lumber go right back down to its normal price, right? You're not going to see everything go back down to its normal price. What you are going to see is foreign competition coming in and making things back at those prices. Think about all the tariffs that are hitting China right now. Everybody around the globe is absolutely losing their mind over the cheap Chinese goods that are flooding the world. Right. See, these people make it expensive. Those people make it cheap. Let's go ahead and bring them cheap stuff in. We'll see normal prices again. It won't be the same stuff. See, people want to say, well, no, I bought this thing before and it was, $15. And it was just like, well, yeah, but that thing's gone up to $30. But this guy over here is making something that's very similar. It's not the same, but it's very similar. And it's $15 again. And they're like, well, I want that one. And I was like, well, you don't get that one. You get this one. It's $15. Right? And it's not the same thing. It's cheaper and it's foreign made, and give it time, it will get better. Right? You know how I know this? Because he described it from hundreds of years ago. And I'm watching it take place right now. I watch all these economists go out there and try and talk about how the Federal Reserve screwed up and don't know what they're doing. And I'm thinking, yeah, you are not explaining the Federal Reserve's monetary policy strategies. These economists have no clue. Every single one of them who said the Fed is screwed up and that there is going to be inflation running rampant and everybody is going to die actually benefited the Federal Reserve. And I have proven that time and time again through their own statements. Its monetary policy was suffering from an inflation expectation that was persistently too low. Everybody who had changed their view about inflation from the day when Donald Trump said there was no inflation and that the Fed should be printing money to the day that there was going to be rampant hyperinflationary scenario actually scored one for the Fed. And it's sad to think that, but this is the way that they conduct themselves. And now I understand it through the mainstream propaganda that there is two communications taking place. And you can see it happen within the lumber industry. How else was I able to call it out as accurately as I did? I mean, did I just is there somebody else out there who was talking about like lumber like I did? Who was up on stage at the Rebel Capitalist telling the entire story from the bug infestation to the damn stumpage fees that were increased from the government of Canada to the mill curtailments that were taking place throughout the nation, through like all the stuff. Like I talked about all the stuff all the way through 2019. All of a sudden the mills shut down. There's COVID and everybody was just like seems to know exactly what the hell was happening within lumber. And they were all wrong. Every one of them was. But yet here I'm down here chirping like, hey, you guys want the real lumber story, I'll tell it to you. And so we can see it take place again today. When you see the Federal Reserve change that tune, when you have the actual forward guidance hitting the economy with interest rates will be at the next cut or at the next meeting, there will be interest rate cuts. We just don't know by how much, but there will be some. When you see that happen, there will be so much activity happening within the economy, it will make your head spin. They won't even have to cut. They may even get there and they say, whatever. But that energy that goes into the economy, the moment that the people perceive it, is going to be the moment that things change. And when you start believing and feeling and understanding that there is going to be opportunity to refinance your interest rates into a better future, then the idea of buying a house from all the pressure that has been building will be underway. There's like very little doubt in my mind. You will see lumber start to skyrocket under the huge demand coming from the pent-up builders who have just been itching and waiting for this moment to take place. And you're going to find that the inventory will be annihilated. And what will happen? You're going to see those prices skyrocket. I can tell. Like, I can't tell you what the timeline is going to be because I don't know what the Federal Reserve is going to do. I don't know what the communications are going to be like, and I certainly don't know how it is that the market is going to perceive that. But from the things that I have gathered, from the easing of financial conditions that had taken place late last year, and those aren't my words, that's the Federal Reserve's words. And I can only think, well, the easing of financial conditions came from the misunderstood, misinterpreted, misguided belief coming from the markets thinking that there was going to be interest rate cuts. It's the only place that could have ever possibly have produced an easier financial condition. Because it didn't come from the Fed. The Fed didn't ease conditions. They were sitting on their hands with the same interest rates that they had. They hadn't changed. Interest rates had stayed still. Balance sheet adjustment hadn't taken place. They were still unwinding the balance sheet the same. But the only thing that had changed was the people's perception of what was taking place within the economy, believing that there was going to be interest rate cuts, and that belief alone was enough to drive the markets into higher levels with higher priced homes, higher markets. Everything went up, right? With this idea that there was easier financial conditions coming was enough to actually create the condition itself. All right, I babbled on long enough, 25 minutes. You guys want to stick around for a little bit? We have 100 likes, 354 people. If you get that like button up to 200 likes in the next 5 minutes, I'll stick around for another 15 or so. Otherwise, we'll call it short at the 30-minute mark. All right, so everybody, you got to go hit the like button right now. New Zealand or island prepping for famine? Yeah, I don't know. I would just get away from like high concentrated cities. That's what I would get away from, as far away. Roast beef has never costed more. Got wood. Lumber hike costs killed my business. Yeah, and this is where I'm trying to warn people now that lumber prices are cheap. If you can get your hands on it, you need it, you can store it. Now it's just now is it. Like prices could come down from here, but we're at like 480 per thousand. Right? Mills do not make money at 480 per thousand. They're certainly not going to make it at 300 per thousand. And if you can find lumber back at 300 per thousand, you are talking like economic Armageddon crash situation. Don't be praying for it. And it's not going to get that much cheaper on the retail side anyway. So now is your opportunity. Prices have been down, futures have been down for some time. There and because they have been down for some time, that has given plenty of time for the retail space to now occupy those or to roll over the old lumber into new lumber that now occupies the space at these retail centers, should be lower futured price lumber. Right. So before, like if they had high priced lumber sitting in the yard, it's taken a while for that stuff to roll over into the cheaper price. But futures have been down long enough that retail prices should be fairly cheap within the retail side of things throughout the entire economy. I mean, yeah, there's probably some places that's still fairly expensive. There might be some places that are super cheap. But for the most part, it's been long enough. This will not last forever. That's the whole point. And if you can store it or got projects in mind, this is it. This is your moment, right? And it has been for a while, but this isn't going to last, and you can see the pressure building now. All right, guys, we're at 152. Get that like button. We got 48 more likes to do in the next 4 minutes. All right, give me that lumber. If you can read, hit the like button. All right. Anyway, I drove from Hudson area to Miami, Florida. It's the same from here to there. Another great video. TM, thank you so much. Simon, you are referring to the futures micro contracts. Well, I to be honest with you, Keta from Madison's Lumber Reporter is much better at understanding futures price to what they refer to as cash or print, because futures price is a contract out there in the future, and it doesn't necessarily dictate what it is that the mill is selling their lumber for today. Cash or print is a much better indicator of where lumber prices are selling today because each mill is going to sell their lumber for a different price. The contracts are for a handful of mills coming out of the Pacific Northwest going to Chicago, and it kind of gives the idea of what they're big time mills, so whatever they're doing is kind of like everybody else has to follow them. But that's it. It doesn't necessarily give a real good, like, thorough indicator of where lumber prices are at this exact moment when it comes from the mills. That's the cash or print price. But yet, I think Bar Charts actually does a cash or print price, and I'm not sure what mills they're following to get that, but they probably have a handful of mills that they communicate with or whatever to come up with this price, or there's something out there. Maybe they're following random links or Madison's Lumber Reporter or something like that. But these are two different numbers, but it's really, I think for I mean, I think if you were like, say, a actual investor in a like, I want to make like money off of like a broker, like like a lumber broker, then that might be really important. If you are buying like massive amounts of lumber because you are like a huge time builder and you are going to be, doing a major project or something like that, um, or maybe like a supplier, in that sense, then I think that cash or print price would be far more important. But for understanding like the direction of the economy and comparing it to what's going on in the broader economy, I think the futures price is just as good, right? For that purpose. But if you're actually using it for investment or purchases, I think like going to the cash or print price would be a better place to be, because that's actually what you would end up paying. But each mill again is different. So, what it is that they're charging is really, you have to call them on payment. What do you got for lumber today? All right, what do we get at? Through 290. We got 30 seconds to hit, 30 more likes, 170 likes, 326 people watching. We can end it at a half an hour, or we can continue it on for another 15 minutes. It's up to you. Go hit that like button. Nice apartments. They look all fancy and new small square foot elevator close to shopping and close to private health centers, often with a big cafeteria and weight room. Yeah, these nice apartments, I mean, how many of those are actually existing out there? Home listings expire. There are lots of expired listings every day. There are way more houses for sale than are listed. Yeah. Looks like modular homes. Yeah, and I can believe that. I mean, I really can. However, it's just like I mean, there could be all kinds of excuses, right? I mean, you got the corporations buying it. You got, I don't know. You got like Zillow screwing up the prices and making them far, higher than they should be. You got like a million excuses for what's going on. Here's the fact, though, is that people are signing the bottom line for this, right? Like they're not waiting any longer. Like you can sit around and wait. And that's what I was going to do. Like I was going to sit around and wait. I would not be able to buy the house that I'm in today. Like maybe at some point in the future I can, but the longer I go on, the higher this price goes up, the further away from the capabilities I had to buy it. That I am learning this lesson now, right? That my capabilities of buying a house had disappeared from me, and I got a second chance at it, and I didn't even want to, took the second chance so reluctantly, like held back as hard as I did not want to do it. And now that I got into the house, I'm realizing, man, every single person I have ever talked to about buying a house, or especially like buying a house for investment purposes, said that they had just about like lost their mind, how the anxiety was rolling. It made their guts hurt. It was a terrible experience as far as like, whether or not they thought there was like the right decision or how much money they were taking out. But ultimately, property owners are the ones who separate themselves from the poor. That's it. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, but that's what ends up taking place. If you either have to be the capitalist or you have to be the property owner, or you have to be some rich prince, whatever the hell that is. I don't know what that means, right? Because I wouldn't even understand that if that was to take place. So you got to be the capitalist and you got to be the property owner. And being the property owner is probably the easiest, most obvious way of separating yourself from the poor, right? From getting on that other side of the wedge. I have met many rich people. I've over at the Rebel Capitalist, all those guys, right? Stood on stage with them. I'm not rich. I'm the only one who isn't. I'm the only one who's up on stage talking economics from a working class point of view with the ideas that I have. And it is crazy to think when I talk to these people that all of them, like literally all, not all of them, but almost all of them earned their money, got their wealth off of real estate, off of property. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? It's not hard to understand that there is a few ways of making it rich, and there's one that is obvious that has taken place. And so, like, as much as I don't like it, like I don't want it to be that way. And I don't want to screw around that way. I would rather much do other things. And in fact, I try to do other things, but it still leads me back to, man, what is it you're going to do to try and, acquire the wealth that you need that is going to put you on that other side of that wedge? And it's going to be through real estate. It's going to be through property. And now you can sit around again and wait and wait and wait until the property is no longer capable to you. It's just very much like this house right there. I would not be able to buy it today. Not at the interest rates, not at the price. And so, even if it was a drop in price, I still don't know if if it went back to the price that I had purchased it at, I don't think I would be able to get it because the interest rates are too high. Right? So, yeah, my capabilities of getting into this house would have to have the prices drop so significantly in order to either be able to make the interest rate payments, right? The interest rate that it's at the level, or the interest rates would have to drop significantly. Neither one of those things I see happening. So yeah, I thank God every single day that I was forced into this thing. All right, so we got it up to 200, and we're at 34 minutes into it. So we'll go up to 45 minutes, and then we'll see where we're at here. Simon, you are rich. You have YouTube channel that's worth more than real estate. Trade, I totally agree. Like, this YouTube channel absolutely changed my life. Like, I can't describe it any other way other than it was something that very magical had taken place, because there is nothing I had going on in this world that was going to get me to a level that I could do something like this. All right. It wasn't like I didn't have anything. Like, nothing that was going to be there. It was going to be a hard time, struggle, trying to figure it out, make ends meet, busted up cars, whatever. It was just like that was my future. And it's, I mean, I know the reality of it. Like, I understand that. And how it is that this channel has taken off was like really felt like a magical experience that was happening. And that I didn't know. Like, I didn't even know why or how or any of it. Like, none of it. None of it made sense. Right? None of it made sense until I started realizing that it wasn't so much about just the efforts of going through it, but it was literally changing the way I was feeling on the inside. It was raising my vibration, feeling higher energy, right? And taking that to the world and presenting it and saying, hey, like, listen, I got some information, I got these ideas, I got these theories, I got these thoughts, right? And I put it out there and it started to flow back. And that's really all it came down to it. And I put it all out there for free. So, yeah, I feel incredibly rich from this YouTube channel. And it's not just the monetary part of it, it's everything. It's like the way I feel, I mean, you guys don't understand, like, 40 years old, drunk, depressed, in debt, all the other stuff, like, to not have to feel like that anymore, to be able to pay my bills, that is unreal feeling to me. That is like something that I didn't think it would ever take place. People were like, man, you're going to be rich with millions of dollars someday. And I was like, whatever, that's cool. I can pay my bills on time. You know how cool that is? I mean, who cares about $1 million when you can pay your bills on time? All right. Simon, you're like my friend talking about economics. I don't know anybody in my life who does talk about economics, so just listening to you makes me feel better. Right on, man. That's cool. Thank you. Love it, man. So happy for you and us as viewers. Yeah, thank you, Steven, man. I really appreciate this, guys, I mean, you let me come out here, you let me talk my heart, you let me do my thing, and, like, you don't give me a hard time about it. Give me nothing but encouragement, it's just, thank you, And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about lumber. I wanted to give you guys more lumber to talk, but that's it. Like, mills are in curtailment. There's short supply. Prices are down. When the builders start to ramp up production or ramp up their, demand, then you're going to see lumber pop. And I'll tell you when it happens, man. But, as of right now, I would get your hands on it, All right. Good for you, man. Can relate. Well, thank you. BR 5500. Owning your home gives the ability to protect your family from crazy hell-bent landlords, period. Yeah, Rob, I agree. I agree. I feel bad for those who are hoarding all the gold. Yeah, well, it's the thing, like, I don't feel bad for those who are hoarding gold, because I hoarded silver for a very long time. And honestly, I think that's an experience that everybody really has to go through at some point. Like, especially if you're a crazy-minded conspiracy theorist, dude, then yeah, I think that's kind of something you need to do. You actually need to get burned by it. So, like, I would almost say that it's an experience that is well worth it, and it's the lesson that is learned by buying the silver. You get the education of it, right? And at the end of it, you have something. Like, you still have a box of silver, as long as you don't cash out of it because you're mad or just in panic or something like that. But understanding that you have tied your money up in something that really doesn't do anything for you but sit there, right? And could act as an insurance policy, but you really hope that it doesn't. So what does that do for your outcome? Nothing. Like, it does nothing for your outcome except for maybe a certain circumstance that comes into the future that might be, right? And there's a lot of ways to protect yourself from the might be's, right? Now, when I say that, like, I personally believe that if you have nothing, then you buy silver. right? Like that's what you start with. But immediately when you have a nice, decent, secure like savings of it, and you have something that says, okay, well, yeah, maybe I have enough to, say maybe make a particular bill payment with it, or maybe a month's worth of bill payments with it, or maybe, and maybe if you've got a lot of it, 6 months worth of bill payments with it, if you're really, into it, and you achieve this particular level, it's time to say, okay, that's enough of that. And then you start participating in the rest of the economy that actually moves, because now you have to start investing. Investing is when you have something that actually gives you a return, not something that goes up in price that you hope to sell into the future for a higher price. That's a speculation. That's the sell to the, the greater fool theory. I mean, that's fine. I mean, and it's not an insult to say it. This is just the way that that it's referred to in the investment community, is that when you're speculating in something, that you're expecting somebody to pay a higher price than you did for it, right? So that's what you end up doing when you're locked up in a precious metal. I mean, that's okay, and it might be position, but you're like sitting again. You're like, okay, one day I'm gonna be like, you'll see one day, right? And then like the rest of the time, that everybody else is going okay, because every single day we're ticking in little tiny pieces of pennies, right? We're making our shit work, and it's important to understand that, because like if you have the security already in place, then you're good. Now, take your chance in trying to move into something that's going to pay you, right? Dividend paying stocks, real estate investment trust or something like. I mean, I'm not trying to make suggestions on as far as where you put your money. What I'm saying is just like there's one place that you go to secure it, and then there's another place you go to earn it, right? And this is where you put your money to work, right? You save your money, you can secure your money, or you can make your money work for you. And this is really how you make your money, you know how you end up becoming independently wealthy, is by having funds out there that are now coming back to you in a higher yielding fashion. Now, the best way to do it is to borrow other people's money to get those things and then have them pay you, right? So then you don't even have to use your own money to acquire it. You just use other people's money to acquire it. And then that's a whole other way, right? So understanding these for what they are, right? All right. 42 minutes into it. We all know that AI is going to take our jobs. Why don't we have some sort of UBI? Um, Yeah, UBI is going to create even more inequality, because you got to think about it, like how new money, excuse me, how the new money comes into the system now is by people who are closest to the money, the people who have first access to it. So the people who are borrowing the money essentially and buying assets that pay them are the ones who are really like separating themselves from everybody else. They're the ones who are like the rich elitists. Now, we can take this money, this brand new money, and we can simply hand it over to the people down at the bottom, which sounds good because then it kind of bypasses the rich. They're not the first ones to it, it's the ones who are at the bottom. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, there would be some who would really understand this and say, okay, here's my moment. I'm going to really take advantage of this and I'm going to buy dividend paying stocks. I'm going to buy the rental incomes. I'm going to buy these particular things because now here's my chance to get on the other side of the wedge. Unfortunately, that's not what most of them do with it. Most of them get stoned. Now, that's not an insult. I'm just trying to say that you can consider that to be anything like, whatever it is, going off and having fun, going to the movies, taking trips, whatever. But they're out there having fun, right? And that's usually what ends up going when they have access to money that is not earned. Now, people who understand how money operates and they have access to money, they're going to take that money and immediately turn it into more money, right? Because that's how money people work. And people who understand and figured it out will then separate themselves from everybody else, because these people won't do that and these people will. Right, so you'll have the separation. Now, even if they didn't do that, like there's like, well, we just won't give it to them or we'll tax it back away. Okay, so these guys don't have access to it, and that's no longer universal. It's only segregated because you only have these people receiving it and not everybody. That's not universal. That's segregated basic income. And guess what? Now you're segregated, and there's a particular little incident that comes from that. Right? Now, we're not going to talk about the segregation of it, but what we will talk about is what happens to the money that does not just go into fund, but goes into the products they're purchasing. It boosts those products, those corporations, the money funnels back up to them anyway. See, this is the problem with it is that you can't make people behave properly. Like you can ask them, it's just like, hey, don't blow this on, don't blow this on Toots and Horrors, okay? And then they'll be like, okay, well, maybe just a little bit, just a little, you know, right? Because that's human nature. They want to go off and blow it and have fun, right? Because they didn't earn it, and therefore it's easy to get rid of. And that's the unfortunate part about it. There will be a lot of people who do take advantage of it. I get that, right? And I know a lot of people will be like, well, that's pretty, ignorant of you or mean of you or just like, one-sided of you or whatever to say that these people will blow it. No, it's not, man. It's not. Because everybody had their chance. We got all these stimulus checks. They could have invested just the same as everybody else could have. A lot of them did. They bought cryptos, got burned. Right? I mean, but they could have done it right by that money. But how many people just went out there and just cleared the shelves, which was exactly what the stimulus checks were intended to do. And so when they just went out there and blasted that money because they really didn't earn it and they didn't care anyway, and they were like, making more money on unemployment than they were working, why wouldn't you, right? So this is the unfortunate consequences of human nature when you just give them something and don't let them earn it. All right. Neglect your children to teach them self-reliance. It's not neglecting your children. You can, it's just not, it's having them earn it or being able to achieve certain goals within their life that they know that they had to build to get there. Right? Like just because a kid was given a car doesn't mean that that kid doesn't understand what it takes to start a business, how to, what it takes to, stay healthy, what it takes to, to make things happen. Some kids who are given everything just don't care. They'll go get drunk and wreck the car and then expect another one. Yeah, that happens. But if you teach a kid that they need to build things, they need to build it up. They work hard at it, little Freddie, I mean, I feel like I spoil him a lot of times compared to what I got growing up. But then again, the kid gets good grades. He goes and, does all kinds of sports. He does weight training. He does his chores. He does all the stuff. Like, how can I mean, it was just like, let me think of like something that he's kind of done that isn't like, he does all the stuff. He's like, I mean, he knows how to work. He knows how to do all this stuff. So if he's given things that seems like to me would be a spoiling or something of that nature comparatively to what maybe I had grown up with, I don't think so because I didn't work as hard as Freddie did. Right? I mean, I didn't get good grades. I didn't care really. I didn't do any of that stuff. So why would I deserve any of those things? Like it took me a lesson of it took me to 40 years old to finally I was just like, man, I guess I really have to work hard. No, I'm just kidding. I was working hard before that. All right. What are we at? 48 minutes. Okay. 8:28. Simon, mail call. I'll check the mail tomorrow. And see if we got anything. Simon, we are already segregated from the money right now. Yeah, but you're not. And that's just the thing. Like, I don't believe you truly are. I think that you have your opportunity to do just the same thing that Robert Kiyosaki and Jason Hartman and Ken McElroy and, all the other guys. Like, I think you have the same opportunity. I have that same opportunity, right? I mean, every single day you hear Mike Zuber and Lumberjack Landlord and Dion. You hear these guys talking about it. I mean, they're giving you all the tips and secrets and everything that they are talking about. They're just giving it away, right? I mean, you can sit there and buy their lessons, their courses, or you can just listen to them every single day and they will give you all the information. And I honestly, I mean, I don't think that I think that anybody could do it. I don't see why anybody couldn't. Now, I'm granted, if you have screwed your life up so bad that your credit rating is so screwed that nobody's ever going to talk to you or give you a job, okay, well, maybe not you, all right? You're going to have some serious figuring it out to do. Like, I don't even know how to even begin to even suggest anything. But for everybody else out there who even just has a normal, typical day job, there is opportunity out there to go do it. Just figure it out. Just don't think that you can't, right? Because if you think that you can't, then you won't. But if you think you can, then you will. It's as easy as that, right? How many people told me that, like, you can't have a YouTube channel, man? You know what it takes to have a YouTube channel? You know how many people I've talked to who watch my YouTube? This is so funny. Okay, I'm kind of rambling here, but that's okay. You guys are enjoying it. So how many people I've gone to or have come to me saying, man, you got a huge YouTube channel. I would love to have a YouTube channel. And my very first thing, awesome, let's do it. I'd love for you to get a YouTube channel up and going. What's your first video? Like, when are you going to post your first video? Tonight or tomorrow? Right? And that's what I say to them, and it was just like right away, right? We're going to get it started because you want a YouTube channel. It's time to get going. Like, let's do it today, right now. Start, like, create the channel and let's go. And everybody's like, whoa, no, wait a minute. I gotta get a camera and I was like, no, you don't. You got a cell phone. You can use that, right? That's your first video. There you go. And they're like, no, I gotta get a camera. I gotta get mics. I gotta get lights. I gotta get a background. I gotta learn how to edit. I gotta do all this stuff. And I'm sitting there listening to all the stuff that they gotta do to create a YouTube channel. And I'm like, are you serious right now? Because I'm sitting here with 140,000 subscribers telling you don't need any of that stuff. The only thing you need to start a YouTube channel is to put out a video. That's it, right? And nobody does it. Nobody does it. And so I get to understanding that that not everybody is going to do what it takes to get out there and make things happen. Not everybody's going to go and borrow money to buy rental properties to make themselves rich. I get that. Not everybody's going to go out there, start a YouTube channel, put out videos every single day like they're making money off of it for 2.5 years before they start making money off of it. And even then, you're really not making money off of it because you're only getting a few dollars a video, and you continue to make videos like you're making money off of it every single day until you finally do. Years and years and years down the road, just like buying rental properties. You have to build this thing, right? You know how many times that I heard of people who had 4, 5, 6, 7 rental properties, driving crappy cars, living in the basement of one of these houses, trying to figure out how it is that they're gonna scratch things together to pay their bills, doing that for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden they're in this position where they have money flowing in. They have asset values that are far higher than anybody would have ever dreamed, right? But it took work and it took dedication and it took time and they had to build it. And that's the whole point, like building things. Like, I think being a carpenter or I can't call myself a carpenter anymore, right? Having done carpentry in the past, right, and can do it, I understand what it is to build something. Like, it takes time. It's piece by piece by piece. And now you can look at a stack of studs, you can look at a stack of plates, you can look at a bunch of sheathing and joists, and you can say, man, this is so overwhelming. How many parts and pieces? And it's like, I don't know, thousands and thousands of pieces. Who knows? I mean, you can't count how many pieces go into a house. Jesus, it's an insane amount, right? But it's all one piece at a time that goes together. Right? Put this stud there, that stud there, that stud there, think, 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 stand the wall up, put it into place, put the next wall together, let's go. Right? And this is the same thing when it comes to anything that you do out there. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. My wife is building a channel right now. It's taken years, but she's up over 500 subscribers, thousands of hours of view time on her videos. And it's going to be, eventually, there will come a moment in the future where she will be able to be a YouTube partner and apply the AdSense revenue and literally get paid to do her chores. She'll get paid to do the housework around the house by just videoing the dishes. And so when I think about what it is that people have to offer out there and they hold it back, I mean, why? Why are you doing it? Every moment of every single day gives you the opportunity to take what it is that you know you've done, you've succeeded at, and share it with the world, but yet you don't do it, right? And then if you did do it, and you did it on a consistent fashion with no expectations of getting anything in return, but just intended on being helpful and useful, the universe does provide for you. It will just show up. It takes time, right? Just like anything else, it's building it, but it comes back. And it's not trying to be some like weird crystal gripping hippie whatever kind of talk. Like, I mean, I'm not that way. And I mean, a lot of people hear me talk and they think that, but it's not. I had to, like, I was never talked like that before. Right? It wasn't until this all occurred and things happened to me that I was like, man, what's going on here? And I went back and I was like, man, these things had occurred. I'm listening to other people, these how to like, these self-help motivational speakers, whatever. And I'm like, okay, what do you got to say? And I'm thinking, dang, you're right. By the way you're thinking and feeling and believing and understanding about the world, you get a reflection of that. It comes back to you in the same feelings and understandings and energies that you are carrying. It's literally that way. And so if you're carrying a negative thought, a negative feeling, like, New World Order, government hates me, blah, blah, blah kind of stuff, then guess what you're going to experience from the world? Just exactly that. And so it's not hard to really figure this stuff out, but it is hard to stay dedicated to it, to stay positive to it, and to know that it's being built piece by piece and that it takes time to get together, right? And that it doesn't come together in a single shot, and it doesn't come together even like quickly at all. Like, it takes time, long time. Sometimes it takes longer than you would ever expect it to, but when it does return, it returns. All right. Well, we got 4 more minutes before we hit the hour. All right. Do it yourself is scary for most in this generation. Yeah, but it's really not. Like, I mean, the thing about do it yourself that is scary is the anxiety of not knowing what's coming, right? Like they don't know what it is. But once you do it, then of course you suck at it, right? But then you try it again and then you get a little bit better at it, and then pretty soon you're actually pretty good, and it takes time. Repetition, just like anything else. Most people don't realize it because they get so scared the first time they do it that it doesn't succeed that they don't want to do it anymore, or they get embarrassed or something like that. And here's something that got me over embarrassment. Here's why I don't get him. I used to be like really self-conscious about being like, if I did something that was embarrassing, I would like carry it with me for a while. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe that. I would just hold this on. Here's something that I thought was really interesting, and I've asked a bunch of people this exact same question. This is not something that I've found out there on the internet or anything else. It was just literally just an observation that I had found one day, and I asked a bunch of people the same thing, right? And I said, okay, think back into high school and quickly think about the most embarrassing thing that you can think of that happened to somebody else. Quickly, right? Think of it. And everybody draws a blank. Like almost nobody. Like some people can think of like something like, oh, I got one, and they'll think of something that happened to somebody. But really, for the most part, nobody can remember anything that happened that was embarrassing to somebody else. Unless they really like, it was just like, I got one, it was a really big tale. But that's just the thing. Like people don't care about other people's bullshit. Like they don't care. I realized that a long time ago. Like unless it's something that they did that was super like outlandish or whatever, just a slightly embarrassing thing that might happen. Like you sneeze snot onto your shirt or something like that. Like, it's embarrassing and people saw you do it, but nobody cares after high school. Like, that happened in high school. Nobody remembers, nobody cares, nobody thinks about that anymore, right? Only you and your memories and stuff like that. And so when I realized that embarrassing or embarrassment or anything else is just a self-conscious thing that's happening within you and nobody else is really thinking about it, I don't really get embarrassed about anything anymore. Right? Like, I mean, I get embarrassed about some stuff. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Right? Or I did that or whatever. But then I don't carry it with me. Right? Like, not like I once had. And it's funny because that actually helps. Like, when I was up at the Rebel Capitalist, I was thinking about that. Just thinking about that. Being at the Rebel Capitalist, when I couldn't see the computer and I couldn't read the words on there, and I'm like, man, I'm up in front of a bunch of people right now and I can't do this. Then what? Like, what am I going to do? Like back in the day, I would have like my anxiety would have been shot. I don't know if I would have been able to handle any of that, but I just held my cool and I'm like, well, shit, now I don't even know what the hell I'm gonna do. And then some dude out of the crowd handed me his glasses. So again, it's just like, it's all about the meaning that you give things. That's really what it comes down to. That's it. You can give it the meaning that they're after me and that this is like, a whole negative issue and I'm going to get torn up because of it. Or you can take it as just like, man, this is heavy information. I need to figure out what I need to do move on and and position myself better. Alrighty, guys, we're getting on to that hour. I think this is probably good, wouldn't you say? All right, pretty run down, but damn, I'm tired. Crushed my foot and have spent my load on my foot. Word carpentry. You're right, Simon. Thank you. Thanks, Simon. Your words inspire me to be a better father. You gave me courage to be a better man. Keep inspiring young men to see through the fog. Respect you a lot. Well, thank you, brother. I mean, I really do. Sometimes, with you saying that, it feels good when you say it. And just know this, man. Like, I think every father probably carries this with them. We'll never know if we're doing it our best, right? We always think that we could be doing better, right? And I mean that's the way I always feel. And sometimes I wonder, it was just like, man, am I doing the best I can, right? And you will always probably question yourself on that. But just know that if you're there, if you're present, right, you're doing the best. I mean, you're just understand you're operating at the consciousness that at the best that you can. And if you're there and you're aware and you're thinking those thoughts, then you're probably there, man. All right. So, all right. You guys have been awesome. Let me see. You late stream. Yeah, Larry Bird, it is. We're about ready to end it up. Oh, see Lynn, of course, you have to hit me with the $1.99. All right. Well, we'll stick around for just a second and read the comment here. If you hit me with them super chats, I definitely can't hang up. All right. So, would you say to make a YouTube about it? Would you say to make a YouTube about it? I'm sorry, Celine. Can you speak about? I'm sorry. We talked about a bunch of things, and I don't know exactly what it is referring to. But I'll give you a second here to kind of clarify that a little bit, or maybe I'll figure it out here in just a second. All right. Sometimes I can be a little dense. Simon, thoughts on John McAfee? I don't know. I mean, I think he was a pretty wild dude. I mean, I'm not sure. He was like, I like how he came up with understood the first computer virus was the way he kind of talked about it and stuff. So like his understanding of computers and the depthness of it and understanding like the cryptocurrency kind of market and stuff was pretty interesting to listen to him, but the guy was kind of loony too. All right. Simon, thoughts on SOFR jumping up to 5.4%? I think that's going to be short-lived. I think that's kind of like a panic situation that is happening within the banking industries right now. These, like, you watch the treasuries move, you're watching these people dump out, you're having the Federal Reserve talking about keeping interest rates elevated and stuff like that. This is going to create the whole idea is going to create a very negative presence within the people who are trying to lend money out there. They're nervous about that. Like, they don't want to lend money out to somebody who's not going to pay them back. And the moment that they do feel that way, the interest rates are going to rise. And now you can feel that happening throughout the entire economy. However, I feel that the overall pressure is going to lend towards lower interest rates. And it's the Federal Reserve who is actually keeping those things elevated, or keeping the expectations of higher interest rates going into the future elevated by constantly taunting about, well, we may not, right? That keeping that open-ended. And this in general is bleeding into the rest of the economy, keeping the interest rates elevated. For the time that it is up there, it's going to be somewhat painful for the rest of the economy, as these higher interest rates do bleed into the rest of the economies that are out there. So, I could say it, believe it, but I mean, like I said, I mean, that higher SOFR, I don't know how long that's going to be. That may be more short-lived, or it could be, I don't know, maybe it'll go up even more. Yeah. All right, so what would you suggest make YouTube channel about? Well, no, see, that's okay. So this is what time is it? Okay, so this is really where it comes down to you. So every single person, every one of us has something in us, right? Now, I'm like, I fell in love with economics, but I was really like into coin collecting, right? but I liked the different currencies. I liked foreign currency. I liked, just all this different money. Like I had kind of like a passion for money. And it wasn't like I wanted money. I just thought money was neat. Like I just thought it was interesting. And so I already from a very time I was a little kid had somewhat of a passion for currencies or money or just economics in general, not knowing exactly that I had this kind of passion going on, right? So as time grew on, I mean, I found that I was like really far more into it than anybody else I knew. And most of the people I knew who had some sort of understanding of economics were much more into the conspiracy theorists, New World Order government, and we should go back to a gold standard kind of idea. But nobody really wanted to like really break down what was going on within economics, right? This is really where I kind of like left everybody, hey, go check out your New World Order stuff, and I'm gonna go and actually research some of these things and figure out what the hell like, fractional reserve banking really means and you know, all the stuff, right? How to start breaking it all apart. And it was boring as hell, and nobody wanted to talk about that, right? So I found when I was able to come out on a YouTube channel and talk about some of these things, well, YouTube has access to a lot of people, right? And believe it or not, there are other people out there who think a lot like you do, right? And they don't necessarily like what other people are doing, even though it's about the same thing that we're talking about. Like a lot of people like my perspective because it's a working class perspective. I mean, I'm working a till, working every single day, 9 to 5, just like everybody else does, who's a blue collar worker. Now, yeah, got this YouTube channel and it did give me some popularity within the community of macroeconomics, higher level rich guys. I don't know what to say, like, these other high level economists out there. But it was the YouTube channel and the YouTube channel was like our connection to like my connection to like George Gammon, right? But it wasn't like the investment or my understanding necessarily of economics or anything like that. That really was my connection to George Gammon. His understanding of economics is more on the other guys, like the rest of the rebel capitalists, that level, that 30,000 feet in the air kind of level, right? That's not the same thing. We don't look at it the same way. We don't interact the same way. We don't do the same thing. It's not the same thing, right? Each economy for us everybody's economy is different. Those guys and their economy is so freaking different from ours. Like it's not even the same thing. Like they don't even look at it the same way. And it's like it's almost kind of comical to be able to experience the two different ways that this happens, right? So anyway, I'm kind of losing my train of thought on this. But when it comes to like, I guess the ultimate question was just like, how do we start a YouTube channel, right? You have to find that passion that's in you. Like, are you into fishing? Are you into knitting? Are you into reading books, right? Maybe it's just reading books. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it's going for hikes, right? Maybe it's, bird watching. Maybe it's, I don't know. It's just like there's a million, billion, trillion things out there. Just figure out which one is yours. And, I mean, I don't know how to like suggest what it is that you need to do, right? Because what it is that you need to do is you need to turn a camera on and you talk about what it is that you like, what it is that you think that somebody else would like, do a video that you would want to see. Like, I don't know anybody who's doing a video that is talking about Cantillon's like explanation of how the population rises and falls and, maybe break down just a little bit of it. Like I could do a video just on that. Right? I just come up with a video just like that. Boom. Right? Now, you might need to do one that says, hey, I'm going to go trout fishing today. I'm going to go to this particular stream. I'm going to be using these particular lures. I'm going to go at this particular time. It is this time of year, and this is how hopefully it's going to go. I brought this kind of lunch with me. I got my dog. I mean, I don't know. Like, you got to figure it out. Be honest, be truthful. Don't be cocky. Don't be pompous. Don't be like, arrogant. Stay true to who you are. Don't try and make believe that's something you're not. Believe me, they do not care if you're in a '99 Toyota Corolla with fuzzy dice hanging from the window with a saggy headliner talking macroeconomics on a higher level. They do not care. I, they don't. Right? Some people do. They made fun of it, and then I kind of got upset about that. But at the end, nobody cared. Right? They were like, it's not important what you're driving. It's not important what you're wearing. It's not important about the fuzzy dice. What's important is what you're saying. Okay? And that's what I know is important about it. That's why I didn't care about any of the rest of the stuff. I wasn't embarrassed about any of that stuff because I know it wasn't important. What was important was the information that I was trying to get out, just the same as you. Like the same information that you need to get out in order to start your YouTube channel. It's stay in frame. Just go for it. It doesn't matter everything else around there. You don't have to be impressive in ways that are superficial. I mean, you can be. I mean, I'm not saying like, hell, I mean, I like some superficial stuff, I mean, I can't lie. I mean, there's some stuff out there that I like, but it's not necessarily needed for a YouTube channel. That's not important. What's important is being authentic, real, and consistent, All right, guys, this was a lot of fun, but I got to call it quits. I mean, I know I keep saying that, but you got the super chat. We got the question answered, I hope. All right. Yes, he answered my question. Uneducated. Have you ever read? Nope. Thorstein Veblen? Nope, I haven't. To be honest with you guys, I haven't really read anything. You know that? Like, I've read The Creature from Jekyll Island. I've read Cantillon's essay on economic theory. I've read a few other, books, but for the most part, I've never really read much. All right, depends on your niche. If it is saturated with YouTubers, going to be harder, but passion will raise you up. I disagree, Mickey. I am in a field that is absolutely saturated with people talking economics. I mean, it is unreal, ungodly, especially if you mix politics into it. Now you got it's just like, it's just nonstop. It's just absolutely everywhere. I am somebody who didn't graduate from with any kind of college degree. I've never worked for a bank. I've never worked for a financial advisory. I've never worked for a hedge fund or investment group. I've never owned a business, really. I've never, come from like a family of wealth. I've never had any money. I don't do investments. Huh? None of that stuff. And I have 140,000 subscribers talking about macroeconomics. Believe me, you can do this. It's not impossible. And to be honest with you, if you're just doing it real, it's not even that hard. Like, you don't have to try if you're just being real. Like, you have to try to not be real. You don't have to try to be real. You just be you, and that's it. And that way you don't have to like worry about doing edits and having fancy equipment and all kinds of mics and backgrounds and studios and lights and cameras and action and all that. You don't have to. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can if you enjoy it, if that's what you enjoy. I used to do video edits. I thought it was fun. Like, I would put all these cameras together and put all these angles and shots together and build this little story and edit it and then be like, oh, look at, I turned 5 hours worth of video into 10 minutes worth of content. I mean, it was just like, all right, I got another super chat. Let's go check it out. See, Lynn, thank you for the $1.99. Thank you so much. Yeah, you bet. Like, I want to see people do it. I encourage everybody to go out there and get their YouTube channel started. Figure out what it is. I mean, if you're into guitars, like playing guitar, then teach a riff. Teach chords. Right? Teach a chords. Start there. Just say, hey, I'm doing this YouTube channel because I want to learn how to play guitar. This is how you play this. And then you do the next song. It's just like, okay, I'm getting a little better. What do you think, guys? I'm learning this one because my buddy wanted to learn it on the bass, and I'm learning it here, so we're gonna play together. And just do it for real. Just be real, and that's it. See, those other guys, like the other people in my happen to be in this particular niche, right? In this macroeconomic space, which is just vast. It's huge. I mean, think about it. They got an entire TV channel, CNBC, dedicated to this, right? You have to understand, like, when these people are communicating, They communicate not to people like us. Like, they're not communicating to the working class people. When they do communicate, they communicate in such a way that it comes out like a code. That if you're not already privy to what it is that they are saying, it makes it very difficult to then grasp what it is that they are trying to communicate out there in the first place. And now I have broken through that. Like, I have learned their language, so to speak. And then when I learned their language, I realized that they don't communicate anything that's of any kind of real intelligence. They babble in ways that sounds smart, but it's not. They're not smart. In fact, most of the time I find them very ignorant and very inaccurate about a lot of stuff, especially when it came to like things like the lumber market. So when I realized this, when I spoke their language and I could hear it, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You guys are dumb. You guys aren't any smarter than I am at all. Like, in fact, I'm smarter than they are because I have firsthand access to information that they're waiting data for. And I realized, oh man, people in our position are actually in a better position than they are, especially when it comes to positioning ourselves for a better future. See, like, literally, they wait for information that we are living in real time. As day job 9 to 5 goers of driving truck and service industries and doing business every single day, right? Though that is so valuable to the investment community, you have no idea how much. Right? Most people don't recognize it because they don't have an understanding of macroeconomics. Luckily for people like us here on this channel, we discuss it so much that we try to recognize it in our daily lives. We see it out there every time we drive down the road. We look at it at the restaurants. We see it in our daily business. We think about it on a regular basis in a fashion that then gives us the ability to conduct ourselves in a way that is most appropriate for us. This is how we do it. Right? But listening to these guys talk about macroeconomics or talk about the economy in general are speaking a language to other people who are up there in the clouds with them. They don't speak to guys like us. And that's the reason why I do this channel. That's it right there. You know? Economics don't matter if you have skills and can provide service. Well, I mean, in a way, yeah. Like, especially if you have a plan, I will somewhat of agree with that. Like, you don't really have to know much as long as you work hard, put your money dedicated to, like, you dedicated to this 401k, Roth IRA, this tax sheltered annuity. You got your plan, you put it there, you go to work every single day, you work hard, you contribute to it every single month for your entire life. You could probably be pretty much a dumb shit your entire life and still work out all right. You know? But you have to be dedicated from the very beginning. And at 40 years old, that was my shot at that was over. You know? All right. We need a Great Depression in order for people to realize that. Dead mall videos and stuff. Yeah, you guys see the video that I did? I mean, I did a live stream 5 o'clock Friday afternoon at the Lloyd Center. Ghost town. Ghost town. I couldn't believe it. I have never seen a place so empty. In the 10th grade, I got to say the morning prayer over the PA system. I got nervous and I forgot the words and said, "Oh shit," out loud. And I heard the entire school laugh. That's actually pretty cool. Like, I would be proud of that story. Like, if that is something that embarrasses you to this day, I would take that and give it new meaning. Like, I would pull that memory out and I would look at that and I would think, oh my God, dude, I got the whole school to laugh at that. From that thing, like I said, like, I would not be embarrassed. Like, I would find that one of the funniest things, and I would probably tell everybody I knew. Right? Like, it was just like that to me would be one of the awesomest things that I could ever possibly tell people from when I was a child. You know, it would be like, dude, listen to this story of when I was a kid, right? So I get up, I got the whole school listening, I got the PA right there, I'm about ready to bust this thing out, and I said it, right? I said it just as clearly as that, To me, that would be like an awesome story. Like, I think that's funny, But I mean, I understand that you might find it like, it's like, no, dude, you don't understand. It was like my whole world came to an end, but it really didn't, right? You're here, you're alive, everything's cool. So, like, just give it new meaning. Look at that and think of it as a funny story because it really is. All right. How is it light outside? Yeah, because Oregon is the coolest place. It'll probably be light till about 9:30. And in fact, you'll still be able to like see outside at 10 o'clock. So well, today it's a little overcast, so it's probably going to be like closer to 10 before it gets, like, what is it? Yeah, it's 9 right now, so you'll go to about 9:30. Alrighty, guys. Let's call it quits, shall we? Give the abundance of lumber in British Columbia, Oregon, and Washington. Why is it so expensive to build houses in these states? It's not that because of the amount of lumber that is produced there, this stuff is distributed throughout the entire nation. So because it's distributed throughout the entire nation, because there's an abundance here, doesn't mean that that guy way over there isn't willing to pay a certain price for it. And because he's willing to pay a certain price for it, the price that you have to pay is also going to be somewhat similar to what that guy is willing to pay, because if you're not going to pay it, he will, and they'll just ship it over to them. So this ends up being competition, right? All these mills who are distributing through all sorts of networks and hubs and distribution channels. Like, people don't understand. It's like, give you an example, when I get lumber, I don't go directly to, like, we don't go directly to the mill. We could, but we don't, right? We go through buyer. We have a buyer club, right? So essentially, like most people, we're with an affiliate, right? So there's this huge buying club that takes place, and we can purchase with them, right? So this is essentially the kind of the way to look at it. Home Depot, like, when they buy for all their stores. Well, we're just a single store. So we can't do it like they do. We don't have that purchasing power. But if we join in with another group and say, hey, man, we can all do this together, then now we have a buying, right? So now when we do this, we go through this distribution network, right? How this is distributed to us. We never know what we're going to get for lumber. I mean, it could be all from the same mill. It could all be from different mills. And in fact, a lot of times, because of the way that lumber is so scattered right now and the distribution of it is so in shambles, that a lot of times we get mill lumber from mills like I've never even seen or heard of before. Sometimes, like, I mean, one time the lumber came in and I thought it had a name that sounded like Kalishnikov, and I was showing it off. That mill got a hold of me. They're like, hey, man, thanks for the shout out. This is how it's really pronounced. And I can't remember offhand. They had really nice looking lumber, and this is the reason why I was showing it off that day. But I had never seen that particular lumber show up. Well, since then, I've noticed a couple of those units have arrived. So they do find their way in. This is a mill from way up in British Columbia. So it does find its way all the way through the distribution and out to my little yard out here on the Pacific Coast, right? And it's just kind of how it goes, right? And so this, like, everybody's buying from everybody, and it is distributing everywhere, and it's like kind of like this free-for-all game. In and out. Have a great evening, people. Alrighty, Wayne, I appreciate you being here, and I'm kind of feeling the same way. I was really should have ended this a while ago, but you guys are just so awesome and kept it going with the super chats and all the good questions and all the thumbs up and everything you do to support the Uneducated Economist. I can never thank you enough, but thank you so much. My best stock are my kids. Life about more than economics. It's about living. Economics is just a hamster wheel for slaves. Yeah, but it's better to not look at it that way, brother, because what you can do is you can actually turn that around, and you can make the economy something that is useful to you. It's not just something that makes you a slave, and it's not something you should ignore because you need to focus on strictly on your kids. Understanding the economy is, again, it's you. You are the economy. You are it. That's it. There's nothing else out there, right? No matter what anybody else says, is the way that you have positioned yourself to deal with what's going on out there. And there's nothing that anybody else is going to do to try and change their way that they do anything that's going to accommodate you. So you have to figure out what it is that you need to do to be in this position as far as what's going on out there. It's your economy, not theirs. It's yours. So for your kids' sake, you have to understand it in this fashion so that you can position yourself to best be there for your kids, because believe me, my economy was in shambles at 40 years old, and there was no way I was going to be able to do what I can do right now for my kids back then, right? What I can do right now, what Freddie's experiencing, what Mac is experiencing, my older boy, is something that I didn't think I was ever going to be able to provide. And if it wasn't for my understanding of economics and starting this channel and doing the things that I do, it never would have happened. So don't dismiss it, man. I know you're here, and I know you're learning, and I know you're taking advantage of this situation. Even if you're just listening, you're internalizing it. Being a slave, didn't God curse man to walk his whole life, Santi? Find a job, business where you don't feel like a slave. And this is why acquiring skills is best for your economy. Yeah, I agree. I'm out. All right. Check out the local city cleanup days. Uneducated Economist, you should make a short that says, I'm the demand in the economy. Oh, a shirt, not a short, a shirt. That's pretty funny. Let's go buy silver for insurance. That's it, man. Let's go buy for insurance. Alrighty, guys. Love you very much. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.